Hello! Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. That was super sweet of you, and welcome back to another episode of early 2000s movies and makeup transformations. And if this is your first time watching an episode from the series, oh my goodness, did you pick a great one to start on, because today we're talking about A Cinderella Story. And yes, I am wearing clothes. This is my Cinderella Story dress. It's my Cinderella dress. Probably not gonna wear this for the whole video because I'm very nervous it's gonna fall down. But let me tell you a little bit about A Cinderella Story. A Cinderella Story is a movie about finding love, following your dreams, and not being afraid to show who you really are. It came out in the year 2004 and it stars Hilary Duff as Sam Montgomery, Chad Michael Murray as Austin Ames, Jennifer Coolidge as Fiona, and Regina King as Rhonda. A Cinderella Story was one of my absolute favorite movies growing up because one, it retold the classic tale of Cinderella in a modern, well, 2004 modern sort of a way. And although I couldn't relate to all of Sam's story in A Cinderella Story, I could definitely relate to that feeling of feeling like I didn't fit in and feeling like I was never gonna find my prince. Ugh, don't you just wish you could go back in time and talk to your younger self and tell them that everything is gonna work out and plenty of boys are gonna like you, but most of them are gonna suck. But one of them is gonna totally rock and he's gonna be your prince, and then you're gonna move to New York City together and you're gonna get a cat together and you're gonna live happily ever after. Look, it's me and my boyfriend Vince and our cat Bert, and now I have two princes. Oh my goodness, aren't I so lucky? But oh my gosh, I'm getting off track. Now why don't you put on your masquerade mask and set your AIM away message, because we're getting into A Cinderella Story right now. Alright, I went ahead and turned my button-down shirt dress back into just a button-down shirt. Bet you didn't even realize it was a button-down shirt the whole time that I just tied up like a dress. I was really nervous I was gonna flash you guys, and I can't be worried about that when I'm trying to tell a story. So I will transform back from business casual into formal wear at the end of the video, don't you worry. But if you're new to this series, I like to give my little disclaimer here. I'm not gonna be doing my makeup exactly how Hilary Duff's makeup was in the movie, even though she looks absolutely stunning here. I think her makeup is so pretty, and I'm gonna take a lot of elements from it, but I'm also gonna zhuzh it up a little bit. And I like to do the makeup how I would have liked to do the makeup if I were the makeup artist on this film. And I'm also gonna take some aspects from her masquerade look. I don't know, we might do a little bit of like a masquerade graphic liner sort of thing. I'm super excited about it. And as always, I will list all of the makeup details down below in case you're curious about any of the products that I'm using today. But enough about that, let's get into the movie. So the movie opens up with a voiceover of Hilary Duff, who we soon find out is named Sam, and she begins telling us about her Cinderella story. Sam goes on to tell us that she grew up in the San Fernando Valley in California, raised by her single father, and they had a really good life together. He owned a diner and he used to coach her softball team, and they just had a really good life together. He was a really good dad. And they were happy in their little two-person family for a long time until one day he met a woman named Fiona who he went on to marry. And Fiona also had two daughters of her own, Gabriella and Brianna, who would become Sam's stepsisters. And not long after Sam's dad and Fiona had been married, unfortunately an earthquake came through and her dad died because of that earthquake. And now instead of their newly blended family, Sam was essentially an orphan, and her father supposedly left no will, which meant that Fiona got everything. She got the house, she got the diner, she got absolutely everything, which meant that she also got Sam, which she didn't really want Sam, but she got Sam. So now we fast forward 8 years later, and now Sam's life is really like a Cinderella story. Fiona treats Sam basically like she's a servant. She has her work all sorts of shifts at the diner, all while going to school, while her daughters don't have to lift a finger. She treats Sam like a servant and treats her daughters like princesses. You get it, it's a Cinderella story. The stepsisters are treated better than Cinderella, that's how it goes. But Sam puts up with all of this awful treatment and everything from her stepmother because her dad left no will. So her stepmother has all of the money from her father, and she's going to need some of that money if she's to go to Princeton, which is the school that she is desperately trying to get into. So on this day in particular, Fiona tells Sam that she needs to go to the diner, and Sam tries to tell her, like, Fiona, I can't go to the diner, I have a big test today, I have to study.
People go to school to get smarter so that they can get a job. You already have a job, so it's like skipping a step. Come on, get going.
Oh, and by the way, when Fiona took over the diner, she completely changed the way it looked and everything. So she changed it from like, you know, a nice like family establishment that was just like, I don't know, real classic, real Luke's Diner vibes from the original. She switched it into more of like a 50s themed diner and makes all the waitresses wear rollerblades and everything. And it's very tacky. And when we see Sam working at the diner, we meet our friend Rhonda, who's played by Regina King, who is literally an icon. There's so many iconic people in this movie. I truly cannot wrap my head around it. But so at the diner, we meet Rhonda, who is one of the waitresses that work there, and she immediately is like, Sam, what are you doing here? You gotta get to school. And Sam's like, oh, I can't, Fiona would kill me. So Rhonda tells her like, no, you need to prioritize your education. I will take care of the rest of what you need to get done. You need to get off to school. So Sam heads off to school, and on her way, she picks up her best friend Carter, and they head off to school together. So when Carter and Sam get to school, they go to park, and they get their parking spaces stolen by some popular kids, which is when we get introduced to the popular crowd. So you got Shelby, who's like the head cheerleader girl, and she's like the head popular girl, and funnily enough, the actress who plays Shelby in this movie is the same actress who played the mean girl in Freaky Friday. Incredible. Definitely a typecast. She definitely looks like she could be a mean girl, and she's a great mean girl. And then we meet the most popular boy, Austin Ames, head of the football team, dating head cheerleader Shelby, and he is played by Chad Michael Murray, who is also in Freaky Friday. Although he doesn't play a popular boy in Freaky Friday, he just plays the heartthrob, and he's really good at that role. He's a darn good heartthrob, I'll give him that. And that scene's really just to establish that these two are like the head popular people from the school, and they have a bunch of other popular people around them, and they're all just very, very different from Sam. So then when Sam's at school, she gets a text on her phone from her secret admirer, as her friend Carter calls him, and it turns out that Sam met this boy in a Princeton chat room online, but they don't know each other's real names or anything. They just go by Nomad and Princeton Girl, but for some reason they both know that they go to the same school. They just haven't disclosed their names to each other. You know how being a teenager is, you know, everything's an element of mystery. Although if you're a teenager, don't talk to strangers online, okay? Hey, I'm talking to you. Don't talk to strangers online if you're a teenager. No. That's very dangerous. A lot of people lie about who they are. It is not a good idea to talk to strangers online. But you know what? We're gonna give Sam a pass for this because she knows it's a boy from her school somehow. I don't know how she knows, but she knows it's a boy from her school. But they've been chatting back and forth for the last, I don't know, couple weeks, maybe a couple months. They don't really say. And so this particular day when they're talking to each other, Nomad, the boy, asks when they can meet each other, and Sam says soon, and then she walks off to class, but as she walks off to class, the camera pans over to show you whose phone that soon text popped up on, and what do you know it? It's Chad Michael Murray, aka Austin Ames, aka the popular boy. So later in the day after school, when they're both home and everything, they start IMing each other again. Oh, doesn't that just give you such nostalgia? As soon as the little AIM thing popped up on the screen, I was like, oh my gosh. What was your screen name? Mine was XO Lil QTX64. I also had Lola XO89. I also had XO Love Pink OX94. I had a lot of screen names, you guys. I was always making new screen names just so I could experiment with like different avatars and different away messages and stuff, and to message boys that I had crushes on at my school. Oh my gosh, how fun. But anyway, so they're messaging each other back and forth, and suddenly Sam says, do you ever feel like you don't belong? And Austin says, absolutely. I can be surrounded by a sea of people and still feel alone. And then I think of you. Ugh, what a romantic. I get why she likes him. That's a really smooth line. And then after this, he asks her to meet up, and he tells her that they should meet at the Halloween homecoming dance in the middle of the dance floor at 11 o'clock and reveal themselves to each other. So this obviously makes Sam really nervous. You know, she kind of liked their little cyber relationship where they could say whatever they were feeling to each other without any risk of being vulnerable. Not that it's not still vulnerable to talk about, you know, feelings of loneliness to a person online, but it definitely is more vulnerable when that person knows who you are and sees you every day. So she feels very nervous about this. She doesn't think that she wants to do it, but she ends up talking to her best friend Carter about it, and he convinces her to relax a little bit and let it go, and he says that they should definitely go to the dance so she can meet him and that he's gonna be her escort and take her there. Alright, now we've reached the part of the makeup look that I'm the most nervous for. I'm gonna attempt my little graphic liner masquerade mask. Wish me luck. Alright, so now we have a scene with Austin and his dad at the car wash that his dad owns. And while he's working, Austin's dad confronts him about some Princeton brochures that he found in his room, and he tells him not to mess with the plan. And then he goes on to say what his plan for Austin is, which is that he's going to go to USC on a football scholarship, play football, and then when he graduates, he's gonna take over the family business and running the car wash. And he basically just, like I said, he says this is the plan, don't stray from the plan, meaning that he's very unsupportive of Austin's desire to go to Princeton. And after this conversation with his dad, Sam actually ends up showing up to the car wash, which is kind of a running theme throughout the beginning of the movie, is that Sam and Austin keep interacting in different ways, but without knowing that they're each other's online crushes, obviously. So it's kind of funny that like they keep seeing each other, having no idea that this is literally the person they've been talking to all day. So she ends up coming through the car wash, they have a brief interaction, and then she goes home. And when Sam goes home, she talks to Fiona, who tells her that she needs her to take on the night shift tonight, to which Sam says, oh, this is my only night off this week, and I was gonna be going to the Halloween homecoming dance tonight. But Fiona tells her that she's gonna have to earn that tuition money, and she also says this iconic line to Sam.
You're not very pretty, and you're not very bright. I'm so glad we had that talk.
So even though she doesn't want to, Sam goes off and works that shift at the diner because she needs her Princeton tuition money. And when she's there, Fiona tells her that she's gonna be leaving to pick up her girls, the stepsisters, at some point in the night to pick them up from the homecoming dance, and that she's gonna be back at the diner at 12 sharp. But at this point, Sam isn't even planning on going to the dance. Like, she was just gonna give it up at this point until her best friend Carter shows up to pick her up, and he's like, yo, what the heck are you doing? Where's your costume? Why aren't you ready to go? And that's when Rhonda, remember Rhonda from before? Rhonda, played by Regina King, the waitress, she comes over and says, hey, what the heck are you talking about? You're not gonna go to this dance. You never allow yourself to have any fun. You should go do something fun. And if you guys aren't realizing, Rhonda is kind of supposed to be like the fairy godmother in this story. Are you getting that? Are you picking up on that? So Rhonda tells her like, no, you have to go. You have to go have fun. And then Sam says, but come on, I don't even have a costume. But of course, Rhonda is the fairy godmother, so she's got connections at the costume shop. So they run over to the costume shop and they have a classic trying on montage. You know how every early 2000s movie has some sort of montage where the main character is trying on a bunch of different outfits? This is that right here. She's trying on a bunch of costumes, super cute little montage, but eventually they settle on this masquerade mask that Rhonda found, and she remembers that she has a wedding dress at home that Sam can wear with it. So Sam has this beautiful, beautiful masquerade costume that she can now wear to the dance. Sorry, I had to do a little bit of graphic liner stuff off camera because it got way too stressful to multitask for a second, but I'm back now. So as we were just talking about, Sam's got her costume going on. You know, she's going as Masquerade Cinderella, and when she gets to the dance, she's really turning heads. Everybody's looking at her. When she walks in, everyone stops what they're doing to look at her. I mean, she looks absolutely stunning, but nobody recognizes her under the mask, which is insane because the mask literally doesn't even cover her eyes. It just covers her eyebrows. And I'm the first to say that I know eyebrows are a very defining feature of the face, but it is just so funny to me that literally nobody recognizes her. They're all just like, oh, who's that mysterious girl in the dress? So then 11 o'clock comes around, and remember, they were supposed to meet at 11 o'clock in the middle of the dance floor. So Sam makes her way to the middle of the dance floor, and who approaches her but freaking Austin Ames? And she immediately says, oh, this was a huge mistake, like I have to go. And he's like, whoa, where are you going? Like, what's going on? And she's like, you're Austin Ames. Like, this is not gonna work out. Come on, don't you know who I am?
Of course I do. The Princeton girl.
But he doesn't recognize her at all. But anyway, he keeps talking, trying to get her to stay, and she keeps saying, hey man, you're Austin Ames. She says it like 1,000 times. You're Austin Ames. You're head of the football team. You're a popular guy. Like, we're nothing alike. You're not this Princeton poet guy. Like, come on, this isn't gonna work out. To which he reminds her of a particular message that he sent her saying,
I live in a world full of people pretending to be something they're not. But when I talk to you,
that I want to be.
And that really does it for Sam. You know, she hears that line and she's like, you know what, okay, I can talk to you for a little while longer. So she agrees to go on a stroll with him outside, away from all the other kids. So they're going for their stroll outside and he still doesn't know who she is. It's like, it's really baffling. I gotta stop talking about it. But they bring it up so many times. And he even says to her at a point, your eyes are so beautiful. You would think that I'd recognize those eyes. But he doesn't. He doesn't recognize her at all. So they go on, they're dancing in the gazebo. They're having a great time. And then while they're dancing under the gazebo, you know, the music is swelling. It's really building up to this moment where it seems like they're gonna kiss. And he leans in like he's gonna pull off her mask right before he kisses her. But oh, then her phone alarm goes off because remember, Sam's gotta be back at the diner before midnight so that Fiona doesn't know that she ever left the diner. And as she's running away, she drops her cell phone and Austin's chasing after her, and then he picks up her cell phone and then he stops chasing. He's like, okay, she's gone. I got the cell phone. This is fine. You know, classic Cinderella. You guys get it? It's like the slipper. It's like how Cinderella drops the slipper, but it's 2004, so she dropped her cell phone. Yeah, this is a Cinderella story, all right. Oh, I also forgot to mention that Austin broke up with Shelby before they went to the dance, so don't you worry. Him flirting with Sam is all good. It's all Gucci, you know, he's not with anyone. But luckily, Sam and Carter make it back to the diner before her stepmother can even realize that she was gone. So after this all happens, Sam really feels like this is just gonna be a one-time thing and she'll probably never talk to Austin again. You know, she doesn't think she's ever gonna feel comfortable revealing her true identity to him. When she gets to school the next day, everyone is talking about who's Cinderella. They're talking about it on the school announcements, and Austin himself is hanging up posters all over school saying like, have you seen this girl? And it has like a composite sketch style drawing of her, which is so funny to me. But he's desperate. He really wants to find this girl because he feels like, you know, he feels like he loves her, dude. They've been talking for a while and she's the only one that gets him. So he is really trying to find her, but Sam does not want to be discovered. She feels like that if Austin knows who she really is, knows that she's Sam, the diner girl, as all of the popular kids always refer to her as, she feels like he's gonna be really disappointed and not like her, and she does not want to face that sort of rejection. So back at home, while all of this is happening, Fiona ends up receiving Sam's acceptance letter from Princeton. She opens it up and sees that it's an acceptance letter, and instead of giving it to her, she says, oh, that won't do, and she hides it from Sam. Meanwhile, Sam is up in her room messaging Austin. You know, he's still trying to get her to reveal her identity to him, and she's almost about to do it. She's so close to saying, I am. She literally has it typed, like, but before she can send it, one of her stepsisters walks in and interrupts her, and then her stepmom calls her out of the room for something, and that's when things really get sticky. So after Sam leaves the room, her stepsister looks at her computer because, of course, evil stepsister, and she sees that Sam is messaging Austin, and she can see him talking about her being Cinderella and wanting to know her identity, and that's when she realizes, oh my god, Sam is Cinderella. And at that point, the other stepsister walks in and overhears her saying that. So they both end up devising their own evil plans, and they show up to the car wash where Austin works, both claiming to be Cinderella at the same time, not knowing that each other was gonna do the same thing. So they're both like, Austin, I'm Cinderella, see? And they quote some things from the emails to make it sound realistic, but he's not buying it at all. But something tells me that these girls aren't gonna be done with their evil plan just quite yet. Sorry, I did a little more graphic liner business off camera. This is really hard to multitask and do that at the same time. I will consider that when doing a look next time. But anyway, so now Sam is back working another shift at a diner, and wouldn't you know it, freaking Austin shows up. So they start chatting, and she really gets him. You know, they're talking in person how they usually talk online. They're both talking about how no one understands them.
Do you ever feel like if you show someone who you really are, they won't accept you?
I do. Being yourself isn't good enough. Like you're wearing a mask.
Like she's so clearly being Princeton girl, but he's just like, what? Like it's totally going over his head. Super oblivious guy. Honestly, I don't know how this kid gets into Princeton because spoiler alert, he gets into Princeton, but literally how? He doesn't recognize her and he ends up leaving, but this really boosts Sam's confidence that she was able to have a conversation with him as herself and he didn't totally reject her. So that was really encouraging her in, you know, making a decision on whether or not she might actually reveal herself herself to him. She was actually about to reveal her identity to him in the diner, but of course her stepmother Fiona comes in, so that doesn't get to happen. So remember I mentioned earlier how the stepsisters' revenge would not be over when they originally tried to convince Austin that they were Cinderella? Well, yeah, their revenge is certainly not over. The next day at school, the two stepsisters, Brianna and Gabriella, end up going up to Shelby and her friends and telling them almost the whole story. Well, no, not really the whole story at all.
She told us that she was going to try to steal Austin away from you. That's when she invented this whole Cinderella plot. She got a hold of Austin's email address, and that's when she started the whole affair.
When Shelby hears all of this, she decides to join in on this revenge scheme against Sam, and they plot a little something special for the pep rally. So at the pep rally, Shelby and the popular girls and Sam's stepsisters all decide to put on this skit. And the little skit that they put on is basically their retelling of Sam and Austin's story. They start reading all of the emails out loud. They read the message out loud about Austin wanting to go to Princeton instead of USC like his dad wants him to, and this is during the pep rally, so his dad is there, like they're really putting them on blast. And then they do the big reveal that Cinderella is Sam Montgomery, but they're both really embarrassed, you know. Everyone immediately starts chanting "Diner Girl" at Sam, and she looks over to Austin to like gauge his reaction for how he's gonna feel when he finds out that she's Cinderella, and he basically just like looks at her real quick and then just like looks straight down, presumably because he's embarrassed that his whole business was put on blast in front of everyone, you know, especially the thing with Princeton. His dad's right behind him. But Sam, of course, as any of us would when we were teenagers, interprets that as him being disappointed that she's Cinderella. So she starts crying and she runs out immediately. And when she's at home crying in her room, her stepmother Fiona comes in to give her her letter from Princeton, even though it's a doctored letter that she made herself, making up a fake rejection letter. But Sam doesn't know this, so she just feels like, oh great, the icing on the cake on a really terrible day. And then when Sam eventually has to go back to school the next day, everybody's taunting her, and literally for what? For being pretty and smart and having to work. So she's having a tough time at home, a tough time at school, but then when she goes to the diner, Rhonda, our queen Rhonda, Regina King, starts talking some sense into her. You know, she just reminds Sam that even though it feels like it's the end of the world right now, she has a whole family of people behind her who have faith in her. Not necessarily her actual family, her step family, but the people that work at the diner. They all really care about Sam, and they really believe in her so strongly. And while Rhonda is saying all of this, all of a sudden a clock falls off the wall. And when this clock falls off the wall, it reveals a piece of the wallpaper that was there before Fiona changed the diner over, back from when Sam's dad owned the diner, and it has a quote on it, and the quote says,
"Never let the fear of striking out keep me from playing the game."
Which is something that Sam's dad used to say to her all the time. So those are really encouraging words for her to hear. And as this is happening, Fiona walks in and starts giving Sam some chores to do, like she starts telling her to go clean something up or do something, and Sam says no. She says she quits her job, she says she quits her family, and she is done taking orders with her. And Fiona's like, oh yeah, where are you gonna live? And that's when Rhonda steps up and says she can live with me. So that's incredible. And then Sam has this amazing line that she says to her stepmom.
You can mess with your hair and your nose and your face, and you can even mess with my dad's diner, but you're through messing with me.
Woo! And after she says this, all of the other employees quit too. Rhonda quits, the chef quits, all of the other waitresses quit, and all of the customers walk out. So everyone is really on Sam's side, like Rhonda said they were. Everyone is backed behind Sam 100%. And you know, Sam's still really living off this high of standing up for herself, so after she leaves the diner, she ends up going to the football game, and she goes right into the locker room, and she goes right up to Austin, and she starts telling him off. She says that she feels sorry for him for being afraid to be who he really is. She says she used to feel like that too, but she doesn't care anymore.
I know that guy that sent those emails is somewhere down inside of you, but I can't wait for him, because waiting for you is like waiting for rain in this drought. Useless and disappointing.
Ooh, that line is very good. And this movie also just so happens to take place during a drought. They make mention to it like multiple times throughout the movie that they're taking place in a drought, and she says that waiting for him to change is like waiting for rain in a drought. So ooh-wee, that is a good line, and maybe some foreshadowing for later. So after Sam finishes telling off Austin, she leaves the locker room and runs into her friend Carter, and they decide to actually go to the football game together. She goes, you know what, let's enjoy this. I've never been to a football game before. I've said all I need need to say, I'll go to the game with you. But towards the end of the game, the team is only down by 1 touchdown and they only have a few seconds left, so the whole crowd starts chanting Austin, and when everyone starts chanting his name, that's when Sam decides, like, you know what, she's got to get out of here. So she starts walking out of the stadium. And as she's walking out of the stadium, Austin notices that she's leaving, and you can tell there's a moment where he knows he has to make a choice. He's either going to keep playing the game and just go back to what he was doing like he always has before, or he's going to stand up for himself and be who he truly is and chase after Sam. And my friends, what do you think he did? He chases after Sam. And as he's running away, his dad tries to stop him and says, son, what are you doing? You're giving up on your dream. And Austin says, no, Dad, I'm giving up on your dream. Yes, standing up to your dad. We love to see it. So he runs up to Sam in the stands and stops her from leaving, and then they kiss. And as soon as they kiss, it starts raining. And remember earlier I mentioned it was a drought? Do you remember what she said to him in the locker room, where she said, waiting for you to change is like waiting for rain in a drought? Well, here's the rain, baby. You got your rain right here, and you got your big kiss from Austin. Oh my gosh, it's so sweet. And so that's basically the end of the movie. That's the beginning of your happy ending, I should say. It's not quite the end of the movie. So after that, basically everything falls into place for Sam. Sam ends up finding her dad's will in her bedroom. Remember at the beginning of the movie, I said that there was no will, and that's why Fiona got everything? Well, turns out there was a will, and Sam was listed as the sole beneficiary of everything, but clearly Fiona didn't want that to happen, so she hid the will, but Sam finally finds it, so now she is able to take back the house. She's able to take back the diner. She gets to repossess everything that Fiona took away from her. And now that Sam's in control of the money and everything, her stepsisters end up telling her how Fiona made up the fake rejection letter from Princeton, so they show her her real Princeton acceptance letter, and they also end up restoring the diner back to its original glory back when Sam's dad used to own the diner, and they also end up putting Sam's stepmother and stepsisters to work in the diner to pay off their debt, which is like wild to me that Fiona didn't go to jail, because that's absolutely fraud. And also they let us know that Austin's dad ended up coming around to accepting him going to Princeton and was really supportive of him going, so that's a great little wrap up to that story. And after that, Sam and Austin end up riding off in the sunset to Princeton together, and they lived happily ever after. And that is the end of A Cinderella Story. Oh, let me put my dress back on real quick. Okay, it looks like I'm naked. I'm wearing the dress. I'm wearing the shirt as a dress, you guys. And with that, we have reached the end of my Sam Montgomery A Cinderella Story look, as well as the end of the movie. What do you think? Let me zoom you back in. We gotta look at the makeup. I went for a very avant-garde style graphic liner today. I even went with the white mascara, which is actually just white water-activated liner that I put on my lashes. But I really wanted to go for like that masquerade style mask that she wore, but doing it with eyeliner rather than wearing an actual mask, and I like the way it turned out. I tried to give you a very faux lace vibe with all the different lines and everything, and I don't know what this is supposed to be in the middle. It's kind of like a little lacy flower sort of a thing. I like the way it turned out, and I also stayed true to Sam's complexion in the movie. I kept it nice and light and dewy and fresh, but I also give you a nice little frosty pink lip, because you know that's a very early 2000s thing, is the frosty pink lip. But I hope you like my early 2000s Sam Montgomery look. I certainly had a lot of fun with this one. I hope you guys did too. A Cinderella Story was a highly requested early 2000s movie for me to review, so I hope I did it justice for you, and don't you worry, I will be doing a lot more Hilary Duff movies in the future. The Lizzie McGuire movie is coming super soon, I promise, but as always, feel free to request even more early 2000s movies for me to do in the comments. And when I say early 2000s, I really mean any time between like late 90s to like 2008-ish, you know, so any movie in that time period is totally fine. Also, check out my description box for all of the products on my face today. Also in my description box, I will have a bunch of Black Lives Matter resources to support the Asian American community, and resources to support the LGBTQ+ community. So please check those out if you haven't yet. And I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!